If you've ever felt like life pushes back harder against you than against others, this message is not random. Some people move through the world untouched. Others move through it tested. If you are the one who feels deeply, thinks carefully, and refuses to betray your values just to fit in, then listen closely. You're not imagining the resistance. You're not too sensitive, and you're definitely not failing. There's a reason challenges show up the moment you choose growth. There's a reason people misunderstand you when your intentions are clean. There's a reason calm feels like rebellion in your presence. This video isn't here to inflate your ego. It's here to give you clarity. By the end, you'll understand why life has been shaping you, not targeting you, and what you're meant to do next with the awareness you carry. So pause whatever you're doing. Watch this all the way through. And if this message speaks directly to you, let me know in the comments, because awareness grows stronger when it's acknowledged. There comes a quiet moment in life when you recognize that you don't move through the world the same way others do. It's not dramatic. There's no announcement. It's a realization that settles slowly, almost gently, yet once it arrives, it never leaves. You've felt this difference for as long as you can remember. As a child, you noticed things other people ignored. You picked up on moods before anyone spoke. You sensed tension in a room even when everyone smiled. You understood when something was wrong without being told. While others focused on noise, you felt undercurrents. You weren't trying to be perceptive. It simply happened. You may have been the one who felt deeply affected by someone else's pain, even when it had nothing to do with you. The one who wanted to help, protect, or comfort without expecting recognition. The one who felt uneasy when someone was treated unfairly, even if speaking up meant risking rejection or discomfort. That sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was awareness. Over time, you'll likely notice that your reactions didn't match the world around you. Where others moved quickly, you paused. Where others dismissed feelings, you examined them. Where others hardened themselves, you remained open, sometimes to your own detriment, and that created confusion. You may have wondered why things affected you more deeply, why you couldn't simply ignore what felt wrong, why you carried emotional weight that didn't seem to bother anyone else, why certain environments drained you while others seemed energized by them. This difference wasn't about superiority, it was about orientation. Your inner compass pointed toward integrity, empathy, and truth, even when those qualities weren't rewarded, even when shortcuts existed, even when silence would have been easier, even when blending in would have brought comfort. People often use spiritual language to describe this kind of awareness. Words like angelic, chosen, or light-bearing appear not because you are supernatural, but because language struggles to describe someone who consistently listens to conscience over convenience. You feel deeply. You think before acting. You hesitate before harming. You reflect instead of reacting. In a world that often rewards speed, dominance, and emotional numbness, that combination stands out. And that is where resistance begins. Difference does not go unnoticed. It disrupts patterns. It challenges unspoken norms. When someone carries calm into chaos, sincerity into manipulation, or depth into shallow interactions, it creates friction, not intentionally, but inevitably. People may not understand you. Some may misinterpret your silence as distance, your boundaries as rejection, your thoughtfulness as weakness. Others may feel uneasy around you without knowing why, not because you are wrong, but because your presence highlights what they avoid within themselves. This is the truth few people say out loud. Difference attracts resistance before it attracts understanding. Awareness unsettles those who are not ready to look inward. Emotional clarity exposes emotional avoidance. Integrity quietly questions compromise. You didn't choose to be this way. You didn't train yourself into it. You didn't wake up one day and decide to feel more than others. This awareness emerged naturally, shaped by observation, reflection, and an inner sense of responsibility toward how your actions affect others. And once it did, life began responding to you differently. Situations felt heavier. Choices felt more meaningful. Relationships required discernment instead of instinct. You became aware that not everyone could meet you where you stood, and that forcing connection would cost you something essential. That realization marked a turning point, because from that moment on, you were no longer moving unconsciously through life. You were moving deliberately, and deliberate people don't blend in easily. They stand out, quietly, steadily, unmistakably, and that is where your story truly begins. Let's stay clear, grounded, and honest. You are not being hunted. You are not cursed. There is no hidden force tracking your steps or plotting against you. What you are experiencing is something far more human and far more common among people with depth and awareness. It is psychological and emotional contrast. When a person moves through the world with calm while others operate in chaos, friction is inevitable. When someone chooses honesty in environments built on manipulation, tension arises. When depth enters shallow spaces, discomfort follows. Not because you intend to disrupt, but because your presence changes the emotional temperature of the room. Most people move through life unconsciously. They react instead of reflect. They follow patterns instead of questioning them. They cope by avoiding uncomfortable truths rather than facing them. When someone arrives who does not operate that way, it creates contrast. And contrast feels threatening to those who are unprepared for it. You may have noticed that people often respond to you in unexpected ways. They may misunderstand your intentions, even when you are clear. They may project their own fears, insecurities, or unresolved emotions onto you. They may feel strangely exposed by your clarity, as if your presence is silently asking questions they'd rather not answer. Some resist your boundaries, not because the boundaries are unfair, but because they were accustomed to access. Some test your patience, not because you lack strength, but because your restraint challenges their impulsiveness. Some openly challenge your values, especially when those values reveal compromises they've made. All of this can feel personal. It can feel targeted. It can feel like no matter where you go, something pushes back. But here's the truth that changes everything. This reaction is not about you. It is about what you represent. You are a mirror, not an intentional one, not an aggressive one, but a quiet, unavoidable one. Your consistency reflects inconsistency. Your self-awareness highlights avoidance. Your emotional regulation exposes emotional chaos. When people feel internally threatened, not by physical danger but by truth, they rarely respond with gratitude. More often, they respond with defensiveness, with distance, with criticism, with subtle hostility, with attempts to diminish or discredit what makes them uncomfortable. This is a protective response, not an attack. The human mind defends what it knows, even when what it knows is unhealthy. When your presence challenges someone's self-image or coping mechanisms, the instinct is not to grow, it is to resist. That resistance is what you've been feeling, not targeting, not persecution, not punishment. Contrast. And contrast reveals everything. It reveals who is aligned with you and who is not. It reveals which environments nourish you and which drain you. It reveals which relationships are built on authenticity and which rely on emotional imbalance. This is why certain spaces feel heavier the longer you stay. Why some conversations feel exhausting instead of energizing. Why you may leave interactions feeling confused, blamed, or misunderstood even when you did nothing wrong. You weren't attacked. You were incompatible. And incompatibility creates friction before it creates separation. Here is the most important realization. You do not need to defend yourself against contrast. You do not need to explain your nature to those who feel unsettled by it. You do not need to shrink your clarity to make others comfortable. You do not need to harden your heart to protect yourself. What you need is discernment. Not everyone who reacts to you deserves access to you. Not every challenge is meant to be confronted. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Sometimes the presence of contrast is simply life, showing you where you no longer belong. You are not under attack, you are under contrast. And once you understand that, something shifts. The fear dissolves, the confusion clears, the self-doubt quiets. Because contrast doesn't exist to harm you. It exists to reveal truth about others, about environments, and most importantly, about yourself. When spiritual language describes you as an angel, it is not suggesting that you are flawless, superior, or meant to live above human struggle. It is not placing you on a pedestal. It is pointing to something far more grounded and far more demanding. It is saying you are aligned with conscience when compromise would be easier, aligned with empathy when detachment would feel safer, aligned with restraint when reaction would be justified, aligned with responsibility when avoidance would bring relief, aligned with self-reflection when blame would be more convenient. Alignment is not comfort. It is coherence between what you believe and how you live. In stories, angels are rarely soft or comfortable figures. They are not portrayed as carefree or indulged. They are messengers, witnesses, carriers of truth, guardians of balance. They appear in moments of transition, disruption, and reckoning, not to soothe, but to clarify. And balance, by its very nature, is disruptive in an unbalanced world. You feel this disruption internally. You feel called to speak when silence would protect you. You feel compelled to leave situations that look acceptable on the surface, but quietly erode your integrity. You feel drawn to heal rather than harm, even when harm would feel justified. You seek understanding instead of dominance, connection instead of control. This orientation shapes your life in subtle but powerful ways. It means you question before you follow. It means you pause before you act. It means you carry responsibility not only for what you do, but for how it affects others. That path is not glamorous. It does not always bring recognition. It does not guarantee ease. It often requires walking away without applause, choosing growth without witnesses, and holding yourself to standards that others may never see or acknowledge. And yes, it can be lonely. Not because you are isolated, but because alignment narrows the spaces where you can authentically belong. You cannot stay where values are violated. You cannot thrive where truth is punished. You cannot pretend comfort where something feels fundamentally wrong. That creates distance, and with distance comes pressure. Here is the hidden truth most people never consider. Those who carry alignment often absorb more stress, not because they are weak, but because they are stable. Life places weight where there is structure. Responsibility is given to those who can hold it without collapsing. Emotional labor falls on those who can process it without losing themselves. Moral tension gathers around those who can sit with complexity without denying it. This is not an accident. Life does not test everyone equally. It challenges according to capacity. And while that can feel unfair at times, it also carries meaning. You are not being punished for being aligned. You are being trusted with depth. Trust does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it arrives as responsibility, pressure, or expectation. Sometimes it shows up as being the one who must see clearly when others refuse to look. Sometimes it means being the calm presence in emotionally charged moments, the ethical voice in morally gray situations, or the steady hand when instability takes over. This does not mean you must carry everything alone. Alignment is not self-sacrifice without boundaries. It is not endurance without care. It is not silence in the face of harm. Being angelic in metaphor does not mean absorbing endless weight. It means knowing when to step forward and when to step back. It means honoring your limits as fiercely as your values, because balance is not maintained through exhaustion. It is maintained through clarity, and clarity, once earned, becomes your greatest strength. You may have noticed a pattern that feels difficult to explain. Each time you try to do the right thing, obstacles seem to appear. When you choose growth, resistance rises almost immediately. When you set clear boundaries, people push back harder than you expected. It can feel discouraging, even unfair, as though progress itself invites complication. This is not coincidence. Growth triggers friction. Any shift in direction, emotional, psychological, or moral, disturbs what was previously familiar. When you outgrow a version of yourself, the environment that supported that version no longer fits. Relationships, routines, and expectations resist the change because familiarity feels safer than transformation. What you are experiencing is not blockage, it is integration. Integration is the phase where insight must become behavior, where awareness must turn into consistency. This stage is rarely comfortable because it demands alignment between who you are becoming and how you actually live. The world responds to that alignment with tests. Can you remain kind without becoming passive? Can you hold strength without turning cold? Can you walk away from what no longer serves you without carrying resentment? Can you speak truth without needing superiority to validate it? These are not philosophical questions. They are lived challenges. You encounter them in conversations that push your patience, in situations that invite old habits, in moments where silence would be easier than honesty, or compliance would feel safer than integrity. Pressure surfaces where clarity is forming. When you choose growth, you stop participating in patterns that once sustained certain dynamics. You stop absorbing behavior that drains you. You stop negotiating with your own values. That creates resistance, not because you are wrong, but because the system around you was built with your former self in mind. People respond to this shift instinctively. Some feel threatened, some feel confused, some feel entitled to the access they once had. They may challenge you more. Question your decisions, minimize your boundaries, test whether you will revert to what is familiar to them. This is not cruelty, it is adjustment. And adjustment often feels like opposition before it becomes acceptance. The reason challenges seem to follow you is not because you are destined to struggle. It is because you no longer avoid tension in the service of comfort. You are willing to face discomfort to preserve alignment. That choice has consequences. You now stand in moments that require discernment rather than impulse. You pause where others react. You carry complexity where others simplify. You take responsibility for your actions instead of blaming circumstances. Pressure reveals this difference. Pressure does not create your character, it exposes it. When aligned people are challenged, something becomes visible. Restraint instead of retaliation, clarity instead of confusion, steadiness instead of collapse. Not perfection, but presence. This is why struggle appears during periods of growth, not to break you, not to punish you, but to clarify who you are when ease is removed. Each challenge refines your understanding of yourself. Each resistance forces you to choose how you will respond, rather than who you will blame. Each boundary test strengthens your ability to stand without hostility. This shaping process is subtle but profound. Over time, the same challenges that once felt overwhelming become familiar. You recognize the pattern sooner. You respond with less internal conflict. You no longer question whether growth is worth the cost. Because you see the outcome, you become clearer, you become steadier, you become less reactive and more intentional. That is why challenges appear in your life more visibly, not because you deserve hardship, but because hardship is sharpening discernment. It is turning awareness into wisdom and intention into integrity. Struggle is not your identity, clarity is, and clarity, once formed, changes how you move through everything that follows. Here is the final truth, and it is quieter than everything that came before. You are not meant to save the world. You are not meant to carry everyone. You are not meant to absorb endless weight in the name of being strong or good. That belief exhausts people who are already deeply aware. Your role is both simpler and more demanding. You are meant to live consistently. Consistency is not dramatic. It does not attract instant validation. It does not look impressive from the outside. but it is one of the rarest forms of strength in the world. It means being honest even when honesty costs something tangible. It means walking away from situations, opportunities, or relationships that violate your values, even when staying would be easier. It means choosing peace over the urge to prove yourself right. It means responding thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally, especially when reaction would feel justified. Most importantly, it means protecting your energy without apology. Awareness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You are not required to explain your limits to those who benefit from your lack of them. You are not obligated to keep access open simply because someone is uncomfortable with your growth. This is where maturity begins. What many people call light is misunderstood. It is not attention. It is not praise. It is not spiritual superiority or moral perfection. Light is steadiness. It is the ability to remain grounded when emotions rise. It is the capacity to act with integrity even when no one is watching. It is the discipline to stay aligned when shortcuts are available. It is the restraint to disengage rather than escalate. And the more steady you become, the less chaos can attach itself to you. Chaos feeds on reaction. It survives through emotional availability without discernment. When you stop reacting impulsively, when you stop explaining yourself endlessly, when you stop negotiating your values, chaos loses its grip. That does not mean life becomes silent overnight. People may still misunderstand you. Some will drift away when they realize they can no longer access you in the same way. Some may challenge you when they sense that you are no longer seeking validation or approval. Let them. Not every departure is a loss. Not every challenge is meant to be answered. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Over time, something shifts. The noise fades. The resistance weakens. The emotional turbulence settles. Your presence becomes less questioned and more respected. Not because you demanded recognition, but because consistency builds credibility quietly. People trust what remains stable. They sense when someone no longer needs to convince, defend, or perform. They feel the difference between someone who reacts and someone who responds, between someone who absorbs chaos and someone who is no longer available to it. This is the shaping you were undergoing all along. You were never being targeted. You were never being punished. You were being refined. Refinement is not gentle, but it is purposeful. It strips away what is unnecessary. It clarifies what matters. It strengthens discernment. It teaches you where to invest your energy and where to withdraw it without guilt. Now, you are strong enough to choose what enters your life, to choose what deserves your attention, to choose what aligns with your values. That choice is not angelic. It is something far more real. It is human maturity at its highest form. As we come to the end of this message, take a moment to pause, not to analyze, not to question, but to recognize something important within yourself. If these words resonated, it's not because they were designed to flatter you. It's because they named an experience you've been living quietly for a long time, an experience that rarely gets spoken about with honesty or balance. You were never meant to understand everything at once. Awareness unfolds in layers. Each phase of your life revealed only what you were ready to carry, and each challenge refined your ability to stand steady without losing yourself. That is not an accident. You now understand something many people never do. Difficulty is not always a sign of being off path. Sometimes it is confirmation that you are moving in alignment. Resistance does not always mean stop. Often, it means you are leaving something familiar behind. The goal was never to become untouchable or unaffected. It was to become grounded enough that turbulence no longer defines you, to move through complexity without becoming hardened, to hold boundaries without closing your heart, to choose peace without abandoning truth. This is where real strength lives. From this point forward, you are not required to prove anything. You don't need to convince others of your intentions. You don't need to explain why you value depth over noise or why you choose restraint over reaction. Your consistency will speak louder than your defense ever could. Some people will understand you later, some will not. Some connections will fade as you grow clearer, and new ones will form that meet you with mutual respect instead of emotional friction. That is not loss. That is alignment completing its work. The most important thing to remember is this: awareness is not a weight you carry alone. It is a responsibility you honor through how you live, how you choose, and how you respond when life challenges you. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to protect what you've worked so hard to become. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is working against you. What's happening now is integration, your values, your clarity, and your direction coming into agreement. And when that happens, life becomes quieter, not because problems disappear, but because you no longer fight what you've already outgrown. Carry that understanding with you. Move forward steady, not rushed. Clear, not defensive. Grounded, not guarded. This is not the end of the journey. It's the moment you stop questioning your place in it and begin living from it with confidence and calm.